fresh air and the warmth of your yellow sun.
He makes him think that he can fly. Now, that's bad for obvious reasons. I have a really bad feeling about what's going to happen now. House MD Broken, another episode requested by you. Let's see what extra insights I can give you from my experience as a medical doctor.
How long do I have to be here?
Depends on you. Process is pretty basic. If you follow the schedule, agree to take meds, participate in group and individual therapy, we can work on goals.
Set a goal.
Excellent. What is it?
My goal is to get your boss to write the letter that I want him to write.
Oh, so House has been checked into rehab because of his Vicodin addiction and hallucinations. He's basically being kept there by the doctor who runs the unit called Dr. Nolan because he needs to write House a recommendation letter so House can go back to practicing medicine. Now, House doesn't seem like the institutionalizable, is that even a word, type. So I wonder what could go wrong. Let's find out.
Now let's talk process. I can smile through gritted teeth and play nice, but there are serious risks of violence involved in that choice. So I'm going with turning this ward upside down, making you and your boss's job and life so unmanageable that he'll write whatever he has to write to get rid of me.
Now, dealing with House gives you two options. You've got the hard option and the harder option. But this episode looks like it's going to be really good because it switches up the usual dynamic where it starts with a patient and then House is figuring out the case. The best House episodes that I've reacted to do that, just like 3 Stories, which starts as a lecture with medical students. Speaking of medical students, you should never underestimate them. Like Michael Lesh, who discovered Lesh-Nihan syndrome as a medical student with the help of his supervisor, who is William Nihan. Interestingly, Michael Lesh is now a professor and he is still most known for his description of this condition while he was a medical student. Talk about peaking early. Now back to our main story.
Lecturing me on manic depression, like I couldn't write a book or two. I stopped taking my meds because I want to stop taking my meds, because nothing's wrong with me. No reason to keep dragging me back here. When I'm on them, everything slows down. That's when the problem is. Hey, nice to see you. My roomie last time couldn't stand me.
Really?
So this poor guy, I know he can't help it, but can you imagine having to spend weeks with him? That's like cruel and unusual punishment. See, manic depression is another name for bipolar disorder. Patients with it, they can switch between manic, like this chap, where they've got pressured speech, impulsive, having multiple sexual partners, and depressive, where obviously they're feeling a bit more depressed. Now, I remember one of my patients I saw in my GP practice was having a manic episode, and she went to Selfridges, put £10,000 worth of items on the cash register, and the people behind the desk were a little bit concerned about the way that she was acting, thought it could be a psychiatric problem, let her check out the items and then called the police, who then sectioned her and took her to a mental institute. A little late, don't you think? So interestingly, there are also some other conditions that can cause like this kind of feeling fast and irritability, like adrenal gland tumor. So it's important to rule out those things if you see someone presenting like this.
I need to request a new room. You're funny. You're also gonna come here to get your meds.
I'm not on any meds.
You either? Good for you. Tell me my mind works too fast. Probably tell Usain Bolt he runs too fast.
You see, now some people out there will argue that our friend Juan Alvarez over here is just a normal variant and we medics label too much. Why would we say that he's abnormal? He could channel that extra energy he's got to give him exceptional creativity and talent. Notable example of this is multi-award winning and recently disgraced artist Kanye West, who obviously has created massive followings through his art, but with his anti-Semitic statements and recent opinions on slavery that are obviously propelled by his mental illness and difficulties with that, has brought himself down. So with that example, it becomes self-evident why we label. We need to identify people that need extra support so that we can give them extra support. Otherwise, end up in situations, unfortunately, like Kanye does, where they destroy their life and alienate themselves from people around them.
I understand you all had art therapy yesterday.
Maybe we can hang some of the new pieces on the wall.
Cut your wrists, huh?
Oh man, see, having a physician who wants to cause havoc in a psych institute is a recipe for disaster, because he knows what buttons to press and then gently caresses them with a sledgehammer. Now, this is showing us the kind of narcissistic, self-centered side of House's character, because when he's backed into a corner, he doesn't mind who he damages to try and find his way out. So if you have to deal with someone who is a narcissist in real life, it is challenging, and the best way you can learn to deal with it is by identifying what the problem is and then educating yourself on how to deal with people who are narcissistic.
See her head? It bobs to the music. It's the only real reaction I'm getting from her. Feels like we were talking.
You're not talking. Her head is bobbing to her pulse.
Head bobbing to pulse is called the Mutism sign, and it's a sign of aortic valve insufficiency, which is a valve just outside of the left ventricle of the heart. There are actually about 10 different signs associated with insufficiency of this valve. Another is called Corrigan's pulse, where the pulse in your neck rapidly expands and then collapses. And another is quite cutely named Quinkey's sign, where you get flushing and then pallor and drainage of the nail beds soon after as well. So maybe our lady who's been mute for 10 years actually has a heart condition. Let's see.
I'm new, I'm unhappy here, and I've been taking it out on you guys unfairly. It was misdirected anger. Because when you think about it, the real jerks here are the doctors.
Oh, he wants to start a revolution. Now, why take on the other patients when you can use them as a tool to take on the institution? Now, the doctors in this place are going to have a hard time controlling all these patients if they let this go on much longer, so they need to nip it in the bud. Luckily, I've never experienced an organized revolt like this, but can you imagine how scary it would be being a female doctor in a room with 20 angry patients who have just turned on you? That is the kind of danger we put ourselves in as healthcare professionals sometimes. I remember a nurse that I was working with told me as I went out on a home visit with her that once she needed to go and do a blood test on a patient in his own house, and as she got in, she saw that on the wall was a small armory of automatic weapons. So she didn't say anything, she just did the blood test and then she left. But and she was so frightened that she actually didn't want to tell the police, because she thought that could this mafioso link the leak back to her? And you can imagine how terrifying that was. So every time she goes out now, she has that fear in her mind that she's going to another dangerous place. How can you carry on working under those circumstances?
You're a natural leader. You could do something useful down here for them. Definitely for you. Or we could keep fighting. If you think you can break me. If you think I'm not every bit as stubborn as you.
Ooh, ladies and gentlemen, we have a standoff. Very interesting. I wonder how House is going to crack Dr. Nolan. I bet he's going to dig for dirt, try and find something sensitive about his past, find out what buttons to press, and again, use his gentle sledgehammer to whack at them.
I need you to break into Nolan's office.
Commando style.
I want you to focus.
You want me to mess him up?
Go into Nolan's office, look at his calendar. I need the name of the woman he met with at 11 today.
So that's how he's going to do it. I knew it. You see, at this point, you wonder, wouldn't it just be so much easier to comply with what they want? He's going through this much effort to try and basically disgrace Dr. Nolan. You know, it's just, it makes you wonder about whether House actually wants to get better. And it reminds me of this book by Ichiro Kishimi called The Courage to be Disliked, and how some people actually isolate themselves to create this unique perception about who they are. It draws attention to them. It separates them from the crowd. And by getting better, they just become another person who is normal again. What if the way that House gave himself value was through self-pity and suffering? If he were better, then that would just make him normal, like everyone else. And to a narcissist like House, the only thing worse than death is mediocrity.
Track down the owner of this car, and I'll be able to visit you in your office tomorrow. My doctor is too smart, too old, and too well-dressed to only be running one ward. He screwed up something in his life, and I think he's doing it again. I need her name so I can blackmail the blackmail.
You may be wondering how House got a phone call in prison. So basically, he found out someone who had phone privileges, realized they wanted drugs, faked a fight so they could give him drugs, then cheat them, took the drugs out, and gave them to the person with the phone privileges. He's totally unhinged. I love it. You know, the lengths that people go through to get drugs into prison are extraordinary. Like, you've heard of people stuffing drugs in condoms and placing them where the sun doesn't shine. But you probably haven't heard of a New Zealand woman who decided she was going to sneak 20 grams of cannabis into a prison by putting it in her baby's helium balloon and got caught out for it. Oh, man. Now that's creative.
House, I'm so sorry. I wish I could help you.
You can.
See, as I get older, I realize more and more that the friends that say no, the friends that criticize, the friends that aren't just in it for the vibes, they are the ones who really care about you, even though it doesn't seem that way. And lots of people don't see it that way. I myself, when I was junior doctor first qualifying, when the senior doctors would criticize me, I would hate it. I felt singled out, targeted, and frustrated, wondering why don't they just acknowledge the work I've done? But now looking back, they were going out of their way to try and help me. It would have been much easier for them to say nothing. But actually they were trying to protect me from things that could come back and bite me in the backside and get me in trouble. And they wanted me to improve as well. So if someone criticizes you, listen, keep them around. Trust me, you're going to thank me for that advice. Don't ever let yourself become a victim.
I'm going to cooperate.
That's not much of a plan. That's actually their plan.
No, I'm pretty sure their plan is for me to actually swallow the pills. To actually cooperate.
House. You were doing so well for a moment there. What this episode is telling me is about House's obsession for power. Like, if he goes along with what Dr. Nolan and the Psych team are saying, then he's being led by them. Like, in some way, he's inferior to them. Like, he can't go ahead with the scheme fully because that would be to surrender, which he's too stubborn and power hungry to do. If his story about the janitor and son of a coma guy was true, it's that House went into medicine for power, not for anything else. If you haven't seen that episode, go watch that. It's epic.
I assume she loved music.
She played for the Philadelphia Philharmonic. Cello.
If she responded to the piano, she might respond even better to the cello.
I play a little. Maybe I bring one in Tuesday. Thank you.
See, in every episode, House needs to solve a case. And I wonder if in this episode, this is a case that he's going to be solving. It's about a lady who could speak before and now can't. So it's called selective mutism. Usually it's a form of anxiety that presents in childhood. And the treatment really revolves around giving the people a safe space to come out and speak, removing the pressure for them to talk. And allowing them to just say one or two words in a one-on-one interaction, and then slowly expanding that until they can speak sentences in public. Now, other possibilities could be like, selective 12th cranial nerve palsy, things like diabetes and vasculitis and demyelinating diseases can cause that too. That would be very spicy.
You think I'm not taking my meds? Are you? Yes. So what do you want me to do? Me to take a urine test? Will that earn your trust?
Haz is in trouble here since he's actually not taking his meds, so I don't know how he's gonna fake this urine test here. It reminds me of this lady who basically went to hospital once from prison because she had something stuck in her backside. When they finally removed it, they realized it was a bottle of urine inside a condom. They asked this lady, "What is this?" And she said, "It's my mother's urine." And they realized afterwards that she was faking her drug tests with this urine so that she wouldn't be caught. I mean, creativity at its finest. There's actually a word for people who stuff things in their privates like that. It's called polyembolocholomania. You learned something today now.
A little dignity, please.
You know the rules, I have to watch.
Yeah, but you don't have to have courtside seats. Can I at least use a stall?
It was all planned. House is playing them like a fiddle. If there's one man whose urine is gonna light up like a Christmas tree, it's gonna be Hal's.
My proof is that I can fool the test. I can fool you, which means I am high functioning. I am sane, rational, capable. I should not be here.
These are your pills from today?
I'm not gonna take it.
Lick it.
You want me to lick your hand?
I washed.
Oh, Nolan is smart. He switched out the pills to be sugar, I bet. Oh, these two are in a marvelous game of Psych chess. I don't even know who I'm supporting anymore. Nolan knew that House was going to try and bluff him with the test, so he double bluffed him. This just gets better and better. Who's actually going to win? Let's find out. They're both so badass.
Clark Kent to pitch in?
The dolly's probably easier.
The dolly already feels good about itself. He was a happy-go-lucky superhero, so I told him he has no powers. You let him help out, he feels good about himself, might be less depressed.
See, House has a point in the sense that it's not very constructive to directly challenge a patient's delusions because most of the time it's not going to cause any progressive thought. The only person that can decide that their delusions are not real is the patient. And they'll do that when the time is right. You can't just jump straight to that point without putting the work in.
Oh, that is impressive. That is a superhuman feat. Why don't you take a rest before you fly that thing up to the ward? He's still depressed. Give me your car keys.
See, the interesting thing about addicts is they're charming, manipulative, clever, very clever. See, House has managed to get himself out of the institute and now almost into a car. He's turning this unsuspecting German woman into an enabler, someone who lies for the patient, makes excuses for them, all while secretly resenting them, all powered by the fear of losing that person. So if you or anyone you know find yourselves in this position, then you need some support by a substance misuse counselor.
Why are you so nice to me?
I think you have a good heart.
Would you still be nice to me if I told you that I lied? I'm not just driving around the grounds in your convertible. I'm kidnapping him and stealing your car.
See, that silver tongue bought him a one-way ticket to freedom. See, I know his heart is in the right place, but it's probably not the best idea taking an unstable psych patient out of their unit, especially not when the only supervision he has is from someone who can't walk very well because they've lost a chunk of their leg. What's House going to do when our superpowered friend over there thinks he's invincible and decides to dash in front of a 16-wheeler?
That was the coolest moment of my life.
It was fun. You can repay me by telling Nolan he's an idiot.
Smell that fresh air and the warmth of your yellow sun.
See, Freedom Master is very clearly unwell psychologically here. He says, I can feel the warmth of your yellow sun. That means that his delusion is quite strong that he is from another planet. He's not not from Earth. And House has gone ahead and reinforced that delusion here. The best way to deal with a patient who has these kinds of delusions is to explore them with non-judgmental, neutral language and methods. And that way you find out more and let the person explore themselves what they're thinking. By going faster and convertible with the top down, he makes Freedom Master think he could have super speed. By taking him on the skydiving experience, he makes him think that he can fly. Now, that's bad for obvious reasons. I have a really bad feeling about what's going to happen now.
Hey! Come on, get down. There's no cry for help. There's no cat in a tree.
Thank you, Greg.
Oh, that is horrendous. Reminds me of a really bad experience. The woman who introduced me to my wife in university, not that particular experience. Obviously, it was good meeting my wife, but she was the life of the party. So happy, such a pure soul. And after university, she moved back to Greece. The next news we heard from her was that unfortunately she had jumped off a balcony and passed away. Mental health is serious and it should be given the respect that it deserves.
He's lucky to be alive. He's got a lacerated spleen, rotational pelvic fracture, compound break of the femur and humerus. Everything in your life has been about finding the truth. But suddenly, with this guy, you decide to reinforce a sick man's delusions.
Those are some serious injuries. If House doesn't change his mind and realize he needs help after this, then I have no idea what will. One of the most frustrating things about being a doctor is when people refuse to change unless some kind of major life event happens. It reminds me of when I was in the palliative care center and there was a patient who's dying from smoking related lung cancer and her daughter was smoking directly outside her room. These habits are so hard to overcome, and if you do have something similar, then seeing a doctor is a good start. But there also is a book called Atomic Habits, which is excellent. I'll link a note to an audiobook down below that you can listen to on Audible for free. So check that out if you haven't already.
I don't care about anything else. I'm transferring you to Winslow Psychiatric. You'll have better luck pulling the wool over their eyes. I'm done.
Don't. I need help.
Finally, he admitted it. See, that puts us as a very interesting place for Broken Part 2, which will be coming next Wednesday. I'll see you there. In the meantime, stay healthy, stay curious. Take care.